Racism has many phases and it is widely known as discrimination directed towards someone of a different race. 1 in 3 Australians believe that some cultural groups aren't welcome in Australia. Between 2009 and 2010, series of brutal attacks against Indians in Melbourne were reported frequently in the news. In 2014, the story of Manrajminder Singh gave us all the big picture of what racism against international students in Australia looked like. Images and stories involving physical abuse garners more attention due to its ability to evoke empathy and concern within us. Thus, they make it to front-page news easily. However, we have no clue as to what a victim goes through emotionally when he or she faces racism in the form of verbal discrimination daily. Altogether now, an organization seeking to erase racism in Australia disclosed that verbal abuse is indeed the most common form of racism. The Challenging Racism project conducted by Professor Kevin Dunn from the University of Western Sydney reveals that approximately 19% of international students across Australia have experienced racist verbal abuse at least once. Francisca Fanny, an Indonesian student from the University of Newcastle, says,
I feel like I'm walking on eggshells whenever I hear racist remarks about me while I'm out alone or even around my classmates. They will tell me things like, if you can't speak English like us, then why do you come here? It's hard.
Some even went to the extent of condemning her accent to cause them pain in listening, and it becomes a daily challenge for her to try to fit in. As a result, this lowers her self-esteem, leading her to always run dialogues mentally before actually speaking it out to someone. There was a research conducted on a sample of 200 international students by Professor Mugginson, Dr. Neelan, and Dr. Phillips-Mewbert, which revealed that appearance and language were the main triggers for racial discrimination. Aravindan, a Singaporean student from the University of Tasmania, shares his experience, which became the reason for him to lose his sense of belonging in Australia.
One occasion I was traveling to my uni in a bus. This lady, she just got up to me and she was like, dude, you should go back to where you came from because like you're really scaring my child and stuff. And then she started shouting. I've never really felt welcomed or accepted in the society in Australia, so this actually became one of the reasons for me to actually leave Australia whenever I had the chance.
His perpetrators found it alright to insult him based on his skin color, calling him names such as filthy trash and terrorist. International students residing in Australia often come from distinct lifestyles and cultural norms unaware to most Australians. Most international students also come from countries subscribed to rich multicultural dynamics such as Singapore and Indonesia. Therefore, they have been molded to respect and be mindful of people from different racial backgrounds. According to a psychological study conducted by the University of Melbourne, verbal racism affects some victims' mental well-being, causing them depression and sometimes hallucinations. Darshini Sambandhan, a psychologist based in Singapore, shares that it is an overwhelming task for a victim to overcome verbal racism.
Victims overcoming the fear of verbal racism is definitely not an easy task for them. It's usually called the unresolved memory, so even the slightest cue may trigger their feelings of victimization.
Some students are unable to deal with this trauma even after returning back to their countries, resulting in them to seek help through counseling sessions. Despite all odds, international students choose to pursue their higher education in Australia as they strongly believe that it opens many opportunities with regards to establishing a good career. However, many do not go back with fruitful memories to cherish. Verbal racism should be of greater concern since abusive words overwhelms an individual mentally, causing emotional distress. In order to eradicate racism against international students, Australians should diminish the culture of denial pertaining to racism. As Adele Horan quoted in the Sydney Morning Herald, everyday racism has to be tackled by ordinary people. Thank you for listening to 1233 ABC Newcastle.